Hey there, it's Fight here, back in the office, back in the saddle from our mini 16th anniversary trip. And here is my, because it's on everybody's minds, including mine, of course, a review of GDPR Pro. Now, GDPR Pro, the plugin itself, you can see how it works on the sales page. The big picture summary is that it basically puts a big splash screen up front and says, look, we've got a privacy policy. Are you happy with it? And if not, well, you're not. And then, but only people can only proceed to use your site when they are happy with the privacy policy. And this is kind of putting it in very rough word or in a rough format, but that's roughly how it works. This may or may not be a good fit for your site. And that's why I'm showing you, for example, this expert interview here with, this is Suzanne Dibble. At about this point here, at about 18 minutes and 32, she talks about, or they talk about the whole concept of where it makes sense to use the full force of GDPR, the full compliance, etc. So my view of this is to, when you go and get this, to first watch or go through these expert interviews, also go through the GDPR training, because you get different perspectives of where and when and how to use everything that comes with GDPR. Big picture right now, really what you absolutely must do is, of course, have a privacy policy that clearly describes what you are doing with data. And then you need to make people aware of it, which is also why, for example, down here on the left you see notice WP GDPR fix users. So this is a plugin by Cyril, what's his name? Cyril Jeet. He put out a plugin the other day which lets you do the whole, like, I'd like to see my data, I'd like to delete my data, I'd like to, all these kind of things. The problem is, well, the problem in quotes with that plugin is that this request form is fairly well hidden. It's not in your face. And what they're doing there is they're kind of intersecting or integrating the two. GDPR Pro, which is very in your face and says, look, we are compliant and here are the rules. This is what's going to happen with your data. But then when people want to go and change that data, that's where you've got GDPR Fix. So if you're a user of GDPR Fix, you integrate the two, and then it's very in your face. But now going back to what I said a minute ago, before you do any of that, go and really dissect these expert interviews and decide where and when it makes sense. So for example, at this point in this interview, she talks about who is likely to complain. Is it your customers? Is it your competitors? Who is actually going to go out and complain to whom, and who's going to, what format of suing is going to take place? Because that makes a big difference of how you deploy this kind of thing. So I can give you the example of what I do. I do kind of high-end consulting and coaching, and as a result, all my marketing is relationship building or relationship based. I don't do mass marketing with scarcity and bonuses. No, instead I look at the KLTR, know, like, and trust factor, along with relevance. And if and when you keep sending relevant information, people are very, very unlikely to get pissed off at you. On the contrary, I send out a message saying, look, I'm on my, on a quick trip with my wife, 16th anniversary, and I got all kinds of emails saying, congratulations and fantastic. So, when you have that in place, people are very unlikely to complain about your privacy policy or assume you're going to do untoward things with their data. Whereas if you, for example, have an Amazon review site and on there for some reason you capture emails, people have a totally different relationship with you. And that's really what I'm talking about. Go and look at these videos here, look at the GDPR training to get an idea of where it might make sense to really be 100% compliant, not only compliant, but also leading with it. That's one of the things she mentions in this video here, is that in many scenarios, being fully compliant and open and transparent with doing GDPR and really taking care of privacy and data, etc., may well be a competitive advantage, because when you demonstrate that, people go, well, okay, I've got the choice between these two vendors here, and this one is very, very upfront and open and proactive about making sure that my data is being protected, and as a result, I'll go with them as opposed to the other one. So there you go. There are many plugins out there. You can go into the WordPress plugin repository or whatever it's called, search for GDPR. They all do different things, and I think GDPR Pro is kind of on the very aggressive front end. It's like, there is, if you'd like to enter, then you need to go and first read our terms of service, our privacy policy, and if you agree with it, then tick this box and now you can come in. And this may or may not make sense, not only for certain types of businesses, but also at certain parts of the relationship building process. Again, as a little side note, what I'm doing is I'm moving all of my sites, and they're not very many, to a model where basically there is nothing. There is no capturing of anything. There are no retargeting cookies. There's no Google Analytics, none of that on the main pages, because I want to use the main pages purely for people to have an opportunity to see for themselves that I've got good content. And yes, that comes at a cost. It's a trade-off. Basically, if I can't retarget, I'm losing a little bit of traffic. However, my thinking is those people who are truly interested will continue on that journey. And the journey then goes something along the lines, they will get deeper and deeper into the site. And at some point, once they have shown that they're truly interested, and that is through clicking, through reading, through engaging with content, then I will present them with an opt-in offer. Like, if you'd like to connect with me, either through my email list or connect on Facebook or whatever, now we need to talk about privacy, because the moment we start talking, I have your data, and now we need to talk about this. But until that takes place, there's no point. Well, there is a point, of course, but I think you need to, at least for a model like I'm using, you need to lead with value and give people an opportunity to see for themselves that what you've got is respectful of their data, it's respectful of their needs, it provides the solution they're looking for. And once they've received that value, they're much more likely to then go, yeah, okay, I'm more than willing to trust this person, or give them the benefit of the doubt at least, and give them my data. The flip side of all of this is, of course, I just mentioned, I'll just make that trade-off and now not retarget. What you need to do for that to work is, of course, then go in and say, look, I'm now putting myself into the shoes of my prospective clients and ask myself, what kind of content do they need to see? So they can say, yes, I had that opportunity to see for myself. Because if you lead with a 2-hour webinar, very few people are going to go through that without first knowing it's a good investment of their 2 hours of webinar. And that's why you need to structure your content in a certain way, which is what I'm doing with New York Marketing, of course. So there you go. Things like, you cannot go any further, like GDPR Pro, do make sense for some sites straight up front, for others a little bit later, once you've gotten to the point where people go, right, now we want to go to that next step, the next level of conversation, and for that we need to exchange information. We need to have your contact information, otherwise we can't talk. And that then inevitably drops you into GDPR territory, and at that point they have to agree to your terms of service and your privacy policy. So there you go. Although there are quite a few different GDPR plugins out there, I would say just for this bit here, the expert interviews that give you a truly nice, not only overview, but also different perspectives and insights into where and how to do all of this in the right way, it's worth getting it at the the early bird launch price or whatever it is, and then use the plugin itself at the right place. And if you already have GDPR fix, you integrate those two. So there you go. I hope this is useful. Let me know. Cheers. Bye.